Picture this, a bedroom in the 1990s. A millennial is hunched over a dual cassette deck, the plastic door clicking shut with a satisfying clunk. They're carefully unwrapping a blank TDK tape, poised to record a song from the radio, their finger hovering over the pause button, praying the DJ stops talking in time. This is an act of patience, of effort, of tangible creation. Now cut to today. A Gen Z listener, phone in hand, effortlessly drags a song into a playlist. With a single tap, a link is sent, instantly sharing a perfectly curated, high-fidelity soundtrack with a friend across the globe. This is an act of immediacy, of abundance, of invisible connection. How did we travel from the painstaking physical craft of the mixtape to the infinite invisible cloud of the playlist? This isn't just a story about technology. It's the story of how our very relationship with music and with each other has been fundamentally rewired. Join us on a sonic journey, Mixtape to Spotify music consumption evolution. We're exploring the formats that shaped our musical lives, the technologies that revolutionized the industry, and the enduring power of music to connect us. If you ever meticulously curated a mixtape hit, like if your life is scored by Spotify playlists, definitely subscribe. Let's press play on music history. The analog era, the mixtape as a love language. Before the internet put the world's music library at our fingertips, we lived in an era of scarcity and intention. Music was a finite resource you had to hunt for, and sharing it was a deliberate, deeply personal act. The ultimate expression of this was the mixtape. It wasn't just a collection of songs, it was a handcrafted message, a piece of the creator's soul given to another. The ritual of creation was a labor of love. It involved hours spent by the radio waiting for that one perfect song, or carefully dropping the needle on a vinyl record to capture a track. The sequence was everything. It was a narrative and emotional arc designed for a specific person. You'd agonize over the flow. Does the upbeat anthem go before or after the heartfelt ballad? The final step was to meticulously write out the track list in tiny, neat handwriting on the J-card, a personal touch in a pre-digital world. The sensory experience was unique. The whir and click of the cassette player, the warm, slightly compressed sound, and the ever-present tape hiss were not flaws, but sonic artifacts that gave the music character. As Dean Wareham of the band Galaxy 500 once said, the time spent implies an emotional connection with the recipient. The message of the tape might be, "I love you." A mixtape was a high-stakes social gesture, a physical manifestation of thought and care. This culture was shaped by the technology of the time. With limited access to music, radio was king. DJs were the original influencers, the gatekeepers who shaped the musical consciousness of entire regions. Different radio formats like Top 40 R&B and rock created what music historian Khalef Asane calls rival mainstreams, allowing different audiences to form distinct identities around their preferred sounds. And in 1979, the Sony Walkman made these personal soundtracks portable, transforming the solitary act of listening into a public statement of identity. Looking back, the mixtape was more than just a precursor to the playlist. It was a kind of low-fidelity social network. The act of curating songs was a form of identity projection, a way to tell someone, this is who I am and this is how I feel about you. The limited space on a 60 or 90-minute tape forced a ruthless curation process. Every song had to earn its place, creating a high-value intentional collection that stands in stark contrast to the infinite, often passive curation of the streaming age. But the analog world, for all its personal touch, was laborious. The promise of something better, pristine sound, instant access, and greater capacity was an irresistible siren song. The digital revolution, CDs, MP3s, and 1000 songs in your pocket. The late 90s and early 2000s ushered in an era defined by the transition from analog imperfection to digital precision. The move to the compact disc felt like a leap into the future. The sound was clean, crisp, and free of hiss. But this new perfection came with a new kind of fragility. Every millennial knows the visceral frustration of a skipping CD, that jarring digital stutter, a brief high-pitched shriek, or a repeating loop caused by a single scratch or fingerprint. The portable CD player or Discman was sleek but clumsy. Early models without anti-skip protection made simply walking down the street a perilous activity for your music. But the true revolution was the MP3. The ability to compress a song into a tiny digital file was the spark that lit the fuse. This innovation led directly to the birth of the Apple iPod on October 23, 2001, with its iconic and culture-shifting slogan, 1000 songs in your pocket. This was a monumental psychological shift. An entire music collection which once occupied shelves of physical space could now fit in the palm of your hand. The tactile satisfaction of the iPod's mechanical scroll wheel and the magic of seeing your personal library instantly accessible was a defining experience for a generation. This change was driven by two key technologies: digital audio compression, which made music files small enough to be easily stored and transferred, and hardware innovation like the 1.8-inch hard drives that allowed the iPod to be so impossibly slim. But this technological leap had a profound cultural consequence. The ability to rip CDs and create digital playlists began to erode what was known as album culture. For the first time, listeners could easily unbundle albums, cherry-picking their favorite singles and discarding the rest. This was more than just a new feature. It was a transfer of curatorial power from the artist to the listener. It fundamentally broke the artist's intended narrative and trained a generation to think of music in terms of individual tracks, a psychological shift that was a necessary precondition for the playlist-dominated world to come. The music industry at the peak of its revenue in the CD era was built on a fragile foundation it didn't understand. Between 2001 and 2010, physical music sales would decline by over 60%, wiping out billions in annual revenue. This wasn't a dip, it was the beginning of a freefall. The ability to digitize music had created an unprecedented opportunity and a dangerous question: if a song is just a file, why should you have to pay for it? The Wild West, the thrill and terror of piracy. The early 2000s were the age of digital anarchy. Fueled by widespread internet adoption and a rebellious spirit, platforms like Napster, Kazaa, and LimeWire created a world where all music was seemingly free. This nearly collapsed the traditional music industry and created a download generation with a fraught relationship with ownership and legality. For a young millennial, the experience was intoxicating. Typing any song, no matter how obscure, into the search bar of LimeWire and seeing dozens of results appear felt like magic. It was a lawless frontier of infinite access. But it came with its own ritual: the agonizingly slow download progress bar on a dial-up or early broadband connection. Every click was a gamble. Would you get the high-quality track you wanted, or a mislabeled file, a low bitrate mess, or worse, a computer virus disguised as BritneySpears.mp3.x? This high-risk, high-reward experience was a defining digital rite of passage. This era wasn't about careful curation. It was about mass acquisition, a culture of digital hoarding driven by the thrill of getting something for nothing. This chaos was enabled by peer-to-peer or P2P technology, which turned every user into both a consumer and a distributor. The industry's response was an economic and legal apocalypse. U.S. recorded music revenues were cut in half, plummeting from around $14.5 billion in 1999 to just $7.7 billion by 2009. Estimated the annual loss to the U.S. economy at $12.5 billion, with over 70,000 jobs lost. In response, they launched aggressive lawsuits, famously suing Napster into oblivion and even targeting individual file sharers, creating a climate of fear and resentment. But the industry missed the bigger picture. They fought the behavior theft but failed to analyze the user desire driving it. What did millions of people want? They wanted a comprehensive, searchable library of everything. They wanted access to individual tracks, not just albums, and they wanted to listen offline. Inadvertently, the chaotic world of P2P file sharing was the world's largest, most successful beta test for the streaming model. The download generation wasn't just stealing music, they were demonstrating a powerful market demand for a new way to consume it. Spotify's genius wasn't inventing a new idea. It was creating a legal, user-friendly, and monetized version of the experience that millions were already seeking out through illicit means. We've journeyed from analog love letters to digital chaos. But what was the first song you ever downloaded legally, or otherwise? Share your musical origin story in the comments. Let's celebrate the songs that shaped us. The streaming age, the algorithm will see you now. The music industry was bleeding out and users were tired of the risks. The solution that emerged marked another fundamental psychological shift from ownership to access. Convenience became king, and the algorithm became the new DJ, ushering in the age of the playlist and a hyper-personalized yet potentially isolating listening experience. With the launch of services like Spotify in 2008, the experience became seamless. A flat monthly fee granted access to virtually all the music ever recorded. No more downloads, no more storage management, no more viruses. Music became a utility as readily available as water or electricity. In this new world, the playlist became the primary unit of consumption. We now have playlists for every conceivable mood activity or hyper-specific meme-worthy scenario. This shift was driven by the subscription model, but its engine is artificial intelligence. Streaming platforms analyze billions of data points, your skips, your repeats, your listening time to power recommendation engines like Spotify's Discover Weekly. These algorithms feel like magic, a friend who knows your taste better than you do. Academics suggest our preference for this model is rooted in a desire to be free from the burdens of ownership. The financial risk of buying an album you don't like, the performance risk of a scratched CD, and even the social risk of being judged for your music collection. Access is freeing and low commitment. This model saved the music industry. After nearly 2 decades of decline, global revenues have seen 10 consecutive years of growth, reaching $29.6 billion in 2024, with streaming accounting for 69% of that total. The number of paid subscribers globally has soared to over 750 million. But this convenience comes at a cost. In the analog and early digital eras, building a music collection was an active process of identity formation. Your record shelf or your MP3 library was a declaration, "This is who I am." In the streaming era, that identity is often reflected back at us by the algorithm. Spotify Wrapped doesn't just show you what you listen to, it categorizes you, telling you who you are. This is a subtle but profound shift from active identity construction to passive identity affirmation. The mixtape was a declaration. The algorithm is a diagnosis. This is especially true when comparing generations. Millennials who straddled the analog and digital worlds tend to have a more diversified and active discovery process. Gen Z, as digital natives, have a more passive algorithm-driven relationship with music discovery. They expect music to find them. In a world of digital perfection and algorithmic curation, a counter-movement began to brew, a yearning for something real, tangible, and imperfect. The retro revival, a rebellion against perfection. As a direct reaction to the sterile, intangible nature of the digital world, physical media has made a shocking comeback, driven by a mix of millennial nostalgia and, crucially, Gen Z's search for authenticity. Vinyl and even cassettes are thriving again. The appeal is multisensory. It's the tactile ritual of holding a large album cover, placing the record on the turntable, and gently lowering the needle. It's the unique sonic character. The gentle crackle and pop of a vinyl record is no longer seen as a flaw, but as part of an authentic experience, a warm reminder that you're listening to a physical object with a history. The lo-fi, slightly wobbly sound of a cassette offers a similar quirky charm. This revival is about more than just listening. It's about collecting. Limited edition colored vinyl and rare pressings are status symbols, offering a way to physically support an artist in a way that a fractional cent stream cannot. The psychological drivers are clear. Many are experiencing digital fatigue and crave more intentional offline experiences. Playing a record is an act of digital mindfulness, a break from screens and notifications. For Gen Z, a generation that grew up in a fully digital world, analog formats represent a novel, authentic connection to a past they never experienced. Ironically, this analog revival is fueled by digital platforms. TikTok and Instagram are filled with content, celebrating vinyl hauls and aesthetic record player setups, making these old formats cool and desirable to a new generation. This isn't just a fad, the numbers prove it. Vinyl sales have seen 17 consecutive years of growth in the UK, and in 2020 US, vinyl revenues surpassed CD revenues for the first time since 1986. Cassette sales, while small, have seen triple-digit percentage growth. This trend reveals that Gen Z doesn't see a hard divide between the physical and digital worlds. They use digital platforms to discover and celebrate physical media. Owning a record is both a private, mindful listening experience and a public performance of taste on social media. The record on your shelf is also a post on your feed. Gen Z is using the tangible authenticity of analog to build cultural capital in their online lives. We've journeyed from the intentional scarcity of the mixtape to the portable liberation of the iPod, the digital anarchy of piracy, the infinite access of Spotify, and the tangible rebellion of the vinyl revival. The technology has changed beyond recognition, but the fundamental human need has not. From a C90 cassette to a global streaming service, we have always used music as a tool to build our identity, to regulate our emotions, and most importantly, to connect with one another. As we look forward, the next chapter of our musical story is already being written. The rise of artificial intelligence offers new tools for creation, but also threatens to flood platforms with generic content and create even deeper echo chambers. Immersive technologies like spatial audio promise to make our private listening experiences more three-dimensional and enveloping than ever before. The future of music will be defined by the tension between this hyper-personalized, AI-driven immersion and our enduring human craving for shared, authentic experience. Will our musical lives become a private concert for one or a global listening party? The choice, as always, will be ours. If this sonic journey resonated with you, hit like and subscribe, and tell us what's the first song or artist you remember truly loving, and how did you listen to it? Share your musical memories below, and don't forget to share this with a friend who still swears by their vinyl collection, or who can't imagine life without Spotify.